There is an epidemic happening in men today. Weakness and comfort has taken place of strength and purpose. Masculinity is labeled as toxic, and women are now the ones who define what a man is more than men are. Weak fathers are raising lost boys who are at risk of never being initiated into manhood. We've grown farther and farther from God, which led us to become weaker and weaker. The man within fights back by introducing men to their true strength and purpose through God. So join me, and together we can restore true strength and purpose in men. Welcome back to the Man Within podcast. So happy to have you here with us today. If you're just joining this channel now for the first time, the Man Within is all about men, helping men, supporting them in their growth, in their journey, growing in fitness, entrepreneurship, business, family, faith, relationships, anything and everything that you can think of. We are all about men, helping men in the ways that they're not being helped today in our world. So brotherhood is one of the most important and one of the most pivotal things that a man needs for his growth. So that is what we are doing here at The Man Within. Well, today's episode, we are going to be focusing on another very important thing. We are going to be talking about you as a man establishing your values. As men, we're going to face a lot of difficulties in our lives. There are going to be a lot of internal and external battles. There will be a lot of distractions, a lot of temptations, a lot of the ways for the enemy to get in our lives, to slip through some of those cracks, some of those openings that we have. And there is going to be a lot of sacrifice and a lot of suffering, especially as we do our best to stay on God's path. Jesus did not promise us an easy life. He said, if you would follow me, you're going to have to take up your cross. You're going to have to deny yourself, deny the desires of your flesh that are inherent in our human nature, which means there's always going to be an internal battle. So Psalm 119, 105 says that the word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. The Bible is full of lessons, and it's full of disciplines to live by. But we also know on this very difficult path that a strong foundation, a strong word, having a strong faith in the Bible and in Jesus is going to help us along the way. And so are establishing these values. So we have all that we need in order to find the right path and stay on the right path. But that doesn't make it any less difficult. God needs to mold us and refine us so that we can become all that he wants us men to be. Men don't become godly men overnight. It's not a simple process, and it's not meant to be. God's formula for growth and success is short-term pain, short-term suffering for long-term pleasure, and that long-term pleasure is an eternity with him. He's going to test every aspect of us as men. He wants us to become stronger physically, mentally, spiritually, and faithfully. And if we want to get stronger in all of those areas, we're going to have to prove it. That means we're going to get tested in all of those situations, in all of those areas that I just mentioned. We're going to be placed in a situation where we're tempted to do what's easiest. We still choose to remain faithful, even when we're tempted, even when the easy route is the only thing that we want, when we're going through the most difficult times of our lives and taking that easy route is just so shiny and so tempting. Even in those moments, we still choose to remain faithful, something that we choose. That's how we're going to be tested. That's how men grow. We grow through challenge and risk and being tested. God can't make that decision for us. He can't choose for us. In those moments when we need to make a difficult decision, we need to keep a level head. We need to be able to have discernment, and we need to instill a strong foundation within ourselves. Well, Christ is our firm foundation. So all of our decisions should start there. Well, what does that mean? If God isn't going to make any decisions for me, how can I use him to help me make better decisions? You can do this by establishing core values. These core values that are also rooted in the word. Your values are what give you good judgment when decision making. especially in those times when that's all you have is a decision, and it's a very difficult one. But a value is something that is regarded as highly important and should be treated that way. Notice how value sounds a lot like value. When we place value on something, we should treat it as something that is sacred and protect it against all costs. And one of the most valuable things we can have is our character. It's something that defines us. It's how we go about our lives, how we live, how we act, which is dependent on our identity. If we claim to be a Christian, our actions should reflect it. It should reflect that of what Jesus would do. If we call ourselves smart, we may tend to read more than we watch TV. If we call ourselves strong, we're going to be more likely to go to the gym. So these thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become identity, identity leads you to your actions. So our values can help us make the right judgment call, the right discernment, and go from there. The values can be linked to our identity and our actions. However, if we don't have identity, we're going to make decisions based on what someone else tells us. If we don't have a strong foundation, we're just going to fall for this is a great way to put it. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that is so true, especially in our world today. That is why we as men, we must have strong values, especially rooted in God and the Word. So remember, this is our decision, a decision we as men, as individuals, that we have to make, because only we can prove our faithfulness. I can't do the work for you. You can't do the work for me. And God won't do the work for you. He's already done a lot of work for us. All we have to do is be faithful and do what's right by him. So your values can help shape your identity, which will flip a switch in your head and help you make sound decisions even during your toughest battles. So to help you sort of develop some of your own values, I'm going to go ahead and share mine with you. So my first value is that I will store up my riches in heaven. I used to measure success by how many worldly things I could acquire, how much money I could get, my material possessions, how many women could I attract, all this material surface level things. But I found out that the more of those things that you get, the emptier you feel, the emptier you become, because the reason for that is that there's only one way to fill that void in our hearts, and that is through God. The true riches, the true riches are the ones that are eternal, things that only God can provide us. God is the source of all good that is eternal. His love endures forever. The true riches are things like faith, hope, love, forgiveness, these amazing gifts. These are all things that fill us and give us life. You can get more and more of it. And the more of God's gifts you get, the fuller you feel. It's the opposite of what you get with worldly gifts. Worldly gifts, you feel emptier. Godly gifts, you can only get more full. These are also gifts that will be taken with us for eternity. That's what I mean when I say they're eternal. They'll go with us not just this life, but the life beyond. Anything you gain on earth will be left on earth. Our goal here on earth is to prepare ourselves for the eternal. If we really want to measure success, think of it like this. This is what I do. I call these my eternal KPIs. A KPI is just a business term meaning key performance indicator. It's just a way that you measure success. In business, it might be something like your sales per month or new customers acquired or your monthly recurring revenue. But an eternal KPI would be something like, how many people have you introduced to Jesus? How many people have you helped? How much love have you spread? How many people have you helped find faith, hope, love, get rid of their temptations, get rid of addictions? In God's business, you get rich by giving the eternal gifts to others. So that's my first value, storing up your riches in heaven. My next value is work because you've been blessed. So we tend to think about doing hard work with the intention of getting something from it. And we have this instilled in our head, especially as men, work, work, work. Okay, well, working is good and providing is good and protecting is good. There's nothing wrong with work, but what are we doing it for? And more importantly, who are we doing it for? So we tend to think about this hard work with the intention of getting something from it. And in Proverbs 14:23, it says, "In all toil, there is profit." And that's true, but that doesn't mean you should only work with the intention of receiving something. When you give generously, and that's what your work should reflect. This value, work because you've been blessed, it means I don't work to receive something. I work because God has already given us the greatest gift of all. I work for God because he's already given us the most amazing thing, which is ultimate forgiveness of our sins. And that's how a relationship is strengthened. Doing something for the other person because you love them. Think about it this way. Do you wait to do nice things for your friends until after they've given you something? Or do you do nice things for them because they're your friend? And even if they're not your friend, how should you be treating others? Well, the best gift that you can give God is your full surrender. The best gift that you can give anyone is your love, and your work should reflect that. That's why my work is dedicated to glorifying him. I work diligently for the work that he has called me to do, which is to help men, guide and lead men to live godly lives, become the men that God called them to be. And that's my calling. That's why I work so hard, so diligently on this. I'm not working for what the world says I should be doing. As difficult a process that was for me to figure out, as difficult a process it was for me to strip myself of my my worldly desires and go through that very counterintuitive process, separate from everything I've been taught. As difficult as that was, it's doing it for God is the right way. It's the most fulfilling way. I've grown more than I ever thought possible, and God's been opening amazing doors. So that's my calling. But I do this faithfully because of the gift that he's already given us. I don't have to wait to receive something. We already have. So that's my second value, which is I work because we've been blessed. My third value is that I will be a leader. As men, we were called to lead. Well, to lead means to go first. So in all of my ways, I strive to be a role model for men. And one of those ways is by reminding myself that I should not be afraid of what God is calling me to do, because I have faith that he will provide. His power lives in me and gives me strength. When I'm afraid to do something, I always remind myself that I am a leader, that God called me as a man to be a leader. That means I need to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. Everything I teach, everything I'm telling you, all of my videos, all of the teachings, I need to incorporate it into my life so I can live it, I can learn from it, and I can share what I've learned. And I'm not being a hypocrite. This has really helped me adopt the win or learn mindset. So the first time I do something, I try to fail fast, because the more times I fail, the more I learn. You can also think of this as failing upwards. Each fail is a step on the ladder to success. It may be scary and difficult, but you're still making progress, even if you're failing. There's going to be a lot of lessons learned on the way to winning. You don't just win the first time. And if you do something and win the first time, how valuable really is it? How much did you really learn? Well, the harder something is, the less likely other people are going to be willing to do it. That's the exact thing, that difficult thing that other people are avoiding. That's the exact thing that you should be doing if you want to increase your own value, make yourself more financially valuable, and set yourself apart to stand out, to stand up and be different. One thing that really helped me get over my fears so that I can just do the thing is to just do it out of pure curiosity. Just do it to see what happens. and see what I can learn from it. And that's really taken a lot of the pressure and the fear away from me. So the third one is that I, as a man, am a leader. My fourth value is listen first. And I want to take a little bit extra time on this one. One of the best pieces of relationship advice that I can give anyone is to not judge others and make sure that you are listening. There are plenty of verses about anger in the Bible. For example, Matthew 5:22 mentions both judgment and anger. And it says, "But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or a sister will be subject to judgment." It also says to not sin in anger and let the devil have a foothold. Don't make a decision while you're angry. That's a great way to open a door for the enemy to come in. But here's why I take judgment and listening so seriously. There's two reasons why people judge, I believe. Number one, they don't have enough life experience. And number two, they don't have love. Or maybe it's a combination of both. When a person has experienced serious pain in their life, they always say this line, "I don't wish that upon my worst enemy." Anyone who's ever gone through something seriously painful has had that thought, "I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy." It's easy to wish pain on someone else when you haven't gone through it. A person who has experienced pain can also relate better with others, and they can empathize. That's the definition of empathy, to actually be able to experience one's pain. So sympathy is something given freely, but empathy is something you have to earn. But a person who has experienced pain can also relate better with others, even if they're going through something completely different. Meaning someone who's broken a bone and experienced that pain may be able to empathize with pain that someone else experiences who's suffering an addiction. They're both painful. They're in different categories, but they're both very painful. But empathy makes a person much more understanding and much more willing to help. When you're willing to help, when you're willing to put judgment aside, that's something that will strengthen relationships. And guys, God is in the business of relationship building. We are called to love others, to love God and love others. Which brings me to the second point. They haven't experienced true, genuine love. A person who hasn't experienced true, genuine love, meaning they haven't experienced the love of God, they haven't experienced the love of a family, or just really don't know truly what love is, they won't know how to share it, because you can only give what you have. Well, if they've never experienced it, they don't know anything about it and they can't give it. But think about this. Would a person who truly loves themselves be treating others in an unloving way? Think about, I'm sure you could think of someone in your life who's just a cheery person, someone who just has a good soul. You know, wherever they go, they lift up the spirits in the room, and all they do is just spread love and joy around with them. Well, that's a person who understands true love and what that feels like. But someone who's judgmental, they probably don't know what that is. And anyone who's ever experienced that true gift of love, someone that has a true strong relationship with God, they're not going to be very likely to go spreading around opposite of God, which is hate. So when I see people who are judgmental or they're just plain mean, I immediately feel for them, because I too was very judgmental and I've been mean to people and I felt very convicted about that. But that was at a time in my life when I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't have a strong relationship with God, but I can tell you, after finding that relationship, it's just been so much different. You know, I see someone hurting and I feel for them because I've been through that. When I had all this pain in my heart, that's what I was giving out to other people. Even though I never ever intentionally went out to just harm someone, I had all this hate and this anger inside of me, and that's what I was giving to the world. So the next point, this is why I listen. When I listen, I don't just hear the words, what they're saying. I listen for what they're not saying. I listen for the deeper thing. For example, when a person says, "Oh, I'm fine," or I'm just living the dream, I instantly know there's something they're battling. There's something they're trying to hide because maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing. Maybe they don't know what true love feels like, and they're battling something. And because I now know what love is, I can try to help. I genuinely try to help, which is just an amazing gift. So, guys, if you take anything away from this episode, from this podcast, it's that listen first. Listen before you judge. It will take you so far. It'll help all of your relationships. It'll make you feel a lot better about yourself as well. So, my fifth value, be a warrior. God made me a man, which means I have a warrior spirit. I use my strength, my grit, my resilience, my perseverance, and my masculinity, all of these amazing gifts. I use all of these as tools to help me fulfill that which God called me to do, because God equipped me with this, with all of these gifts to do what He created me to do. Whenever I encounter ridicule, whenever I encounter those things that Jesus told us we were going to face, the pushback, the broken relationships, these battles, or any other sort of obstacles, I happily remind myself that I have this warrior spirit that God gave me so I can push through it. My body is strong, but because of God, my faith is stronger. And I know that He will help me overcome anything if I am fighting for His will. In Ephesians 6, 10 through 18, that famous verse that reminds us of our warrior spirit by telling us to suit up, to prepare for battle, and wear the entire armor of God. Jesus said we would be insulted, persecuted by the world. If you're living a godly life, you should absolutely expect to encounter a lot of battles from the enemy, from the world. But think of it this way: be the kind of man that the enemy is afraid of. That's why God gave you as a man a warrior spirit. We are meant to fight. That's why we have this strength. And that's why we have this resilience. That's why we have this masculinity. That's what masculinity is. It is that willingness to fight for what God called us to do. So be the kind of man that the enemy is afraid of. And my last value, my sixth one, is be prepared. As men, we are spending 99% of our time preparing for the 1% of the time that we need to execute. That means in the very rare instances that a man needs to protect, we're ready in all of those situations. The absolute worst thing that I can think of is being in a situation where my family needs me to protect them and I can't because I wasn't prepared. I'm not just talking about physical protection. Okay. I'm not telling you to just go spend 100% of your time in the gym or 100% of your time training jujitsu. What I mean is that we are always 10 steps ahead. We're always thinking about what could go wrong, what could happen, whether it's in our businesses, our homes, our families, our finances, and yes, even physically, everything. If we are the leaders, we need to lead. We got to step up and do that hard work to prepare ourselves so that we can lead. We need to be aware of all the potential threats and minimize them. As a leader of your household, your family is going to depend on you. That means you need to depend on you. Protect your family against physical danger, against poverty, against the enemy. Sharpen yourself daily. Get smarter and get stronger. So these are my core values that I live by. I hope this helps you kind of shape your own values in your life so you can live with more discernment, more strength, and more faith. So again, my values that I live by: storing up your riches in heaven, working for God and not the world, being a leader, listen before anger, and don't be quick to judge, be a warrior, and be prepared. And if you're wondering how many you should have, I would say that 5 is a good number to start with. Remember, it's not a list of rules. It's how you define your core identity. It's what shapes your actions, how you live your life. You want something that you can quickly recall in the moment when the time calls for it. So anything beyond 7 will be hard for you to remember, and it'll probably be forgotten. especially in those times that you really need it. Also, your values can change as you grow. You won't be the same man at 50 as you are at 20. At 20, you may be more focused on learning and growing, and at 50, you might be more concerned about what's best for your family. But you as a person don't change. God knows who you are, right down to your core, but you do grow. There's a difference. So, what are your values? Take a minute today to just sit and reflect on that question and see if you can come up with 5 good values that will help you have more discernment in your life and help you stay more aligned in God's path for you. So, guys, thank you so much for listening today. If you got any value from this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And go ahead and comment which topic you'd like to learn more about. And I'd love to share on that. So, guys, thank you again so much for all of your support, and I will see you on the next one.